Good morning, Mr. Hudson.
Good morning, sir.
Too good to be forgotten. Chris Garland sadly passed away recently. A big friend and former teammate of yours at Chelsea. Let's tell the Chris Garland story from Alan Hudson's perspective, your friend.
Well, to be perfectly honest, when I heard the news, it didn't sink in. I went out a couple of days later, and I've just something on my mind. Another family member I got here is very ill. My sister-in-law is very ill, and I went to visit her. And Chrissy died that day, and it kind of hit me a couple of days later, and I couldn't weigh the two things up. And then all the memories started flooding back of the great times I had with him and me and him, with the team, without the team. He, as you know, like we always said, people say to me, I was looking at the Dave English thing the other day when we opened the batting with Viv Richards, and people say, well, how come you got to play with Viv, and well, it was a big buddy of Chris. Chris Garland introduced me to Viv, and they were like two peas in a pod. One was a player from Bristol City who came to Chelsea for £100,000, and he was just super. He fitted in like a pair of gloves, and then his sparring partner was the best cricketer in the entire world. And I do love my cricket, and I got to know Viv through Chris, and through his relationship with Viv, they used to go on holiday, Barbados, and this particular year, Chris took me to Barbados with him because I had a place over there, and I reciprocated by taking him to my place in Tampa Bay sometime later, So it was a great love affair with Chris. He's someone you just loved. You didn't like him as you like people and you dislike people, but you just love certain people. And the love I have for Chris is immense. And I told young Adam the other day, his boy, I said, he says, you don't have to tell me how. He said, I can see it when you're together. He's just a fantastic fella.
Before we go back to 1971, because I believe that was the year that Chris Garland walked through the gates at Stamford Bridge, let's just momentarily talk about when you did open the batting with Lord Bunbury, because it's a great story, isn't it, Al?
Well, it was, we people like Frank Worthing and Chris Garland, myself, Don Shanks, that's our little team, and we had a coaching school together, and it was me and Don's coaching school, but Frank was always included. Chris Garland was always there. We were like a family, and Chrissy, me and Chrissy, and Riv, we go down to playing. We did a lot of testimonial dues that people, all for nothing. We weren't bothered about money. We just wanted to do it because we believed in it. We went all over the country doing so. One of them was a cricket match down in Geezer gave me a bar down there. Where did I down in your way, Warwick way?
Oh, okay.
Geezer he owed me money, and somebody owed him money, and he said, I'll take the bar off you, and he named it Hudson. So it was Leamington Spa.
Oh, right, okay, Al.
And I had a bar there.
Oh,
and I
okay.
used to go down to Leamington Spa on certain occasions to show me face, and it didn't earn no money out of it, just drinks and all. There's a day out, and I was going out with my second wife at the time. We went down there and a couple of nice weekends, and the boys would come. Tommy Docherty come down there and opened the bar for us, actually. So it was a bit of a thing, something they'd never done in Leamington Spa. But, so this led to the cricket match. And I was with Viv in the morning. My son Alan was there. My friend from Stoke, Terry Bate, came down. He got on with Viv Richards like a house on fire because all they talked about was drink, drugs, and women. and it was, I couldn't get them apart. Once they were sitting in the corner, they were telling each other stories. A fella from the pottery business, who me and him went to America when we got under house arrest and all that, and he had a few quid, and he put his money on where his mouth is, kind of thing, and we had a ball. We was away for about 2 years in America and house arrest in Bermuda, and there's him and Viv, and they, like they'd known each other for years. Was a beautiful thing about our relationships. You bring two people together, and you think this is amazing how they get on so well. And that is, I think, the key to my life, because I wouldn't introduce lovely people to dodgy people and people I don't like. As I've just said to you, Chrissy is a totally different. We've lost a few players over the years. I think there's only 3 of us left from the cup final team, and this is like a major blow was Peter Houseman, when we lost Peter at a very early age, but that was just horrendous, in a car crash with his wife, leaving 2 kids behind, and someone once said, then this team, Chelsea's got a line of tragedy through it, and people, the Osgood thing, the Hutchinson thing, and all right, look, just recently, Ronnie, Johnny Hollins and what have you, but Chris has really hit me, it's and I think we do when we do. I think you only can tell you love people when you think, I'll never see him again, and it's heartbreaking. It really shook me. I answered somebody on the Facebook the other day. Someone put something on the Facebook, when I was first time I've ever answered them and put them in their place. They said, just in a few words, they said Chris Garland was a good footballer for Chelsea, and I said, excuse me. I said Chris Garland was a human being with family, with kids, with a wife. Chris Garland is a human being, and when we go out together, and when we went out together, we didn't go out as footballers, we went out as friends. Is that all you think about, Chris Garland in a Chelsea shirt? You should be absolutely ashamed of yourself. If you live your life like that, go on supporting Chelsea, and you just think of Alan Hudson in a number 10 shirt. Well, I'm more than that. I'm a person, and I live I don't want to leave this world as the best footballer in the world or one of the best footballers ever seen. I want to leave here as a nice bloke who got on, who have feelings, and met some wonderful people along the way. That's my life. That's my legacy. My legacy has nothing to do with football. My legacy will be getting through the accident and getting through the hospital, getting through the operations, and being around real lovely people. And Chris is, you just don't come any lovelier than Chris. Everybody I introduced him to, when we done the coaching school in Stoke, he was as popular as, any Stoke player. They just loved him. And the girls loved him, of course, because he was a good-looking boy.
So what did Chris say when you opened the batting with Lord Bunbury and you didn't last that long? Did he look at you as
Well,
if to
Chris
say,
weren't too bothered because he was in the bar, I think. But we had been before, and that was the morning with Viv and Terry were, I think we met in a casino or something, because we were having a couple of drinks and before the game, and then we go into we're getting changed, and we put our whites on, and I put my pads on, and I've looked over at David English, and I've pointed like to his pads as much as say he's me, and Viv's come in as captain, and then Viv says, right, fellas, who's going to open? So I shot my hand up first, and I said, I'd like to open. And I looked at Dave, and Dave put his hand up. He said, come on then, me and you, Al. So that was it. So he says, that's what I like to see. People want to go out there and, be professional about it. I said, there's no better professional than me playing cricket. So we walked to the wicket. As we were walking to the wicket, I said to David, look, I'll take first ball. He said, no, I like to take first ball. I said, no. I said, I want you to watch, because this is how we're going to do it. We're going to have a look at the bowling for 3 or 4 overs, and then we're going to open up, and then we'll give him some right hammer. He said, I like your way of thinking now. He said, that's a perfect way to play. So I got to mid crease and this bowler come in, bowled at me. When I took the biggest swing at it and missed it. Third ball, second ball, third ball, fifth ball. And I took 5 almighty swings at it and didn't hit one of them. I couldn't even see it. I've been drinking all morning. Anyway, he gave me out after the fifth ball, I think, and I walked off. And David stood on the other end looking at me walk off. And I was giving him all these signs, what happened, He would come to me, what was that talk about? What was the talk about? And it was great. His face, he couldn't wait to get off to see me in the bar after. And so, he might have worked with the Bee Gees and all that, but, he never worked with me.
What was Chris like at cricket? Was he a batsman? Was he a bowler? I know the connection is Viv Richards, and it was his
Yeah.
mate. So was he a social cricketer, or did Chris take it serious?
No, Chris was a social cricketer.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't take. Once I knew I was a good cricketer at school, but once I knew I couldn't compete at that level, it became so totally social. I don't try and pretend to be anything that I can't be. And I found out at school one day I was playing for West London with my friend Bill Boyce, and who's obviously he was the one whose uncle played. For the West Indies, Keith Boyce, who played for Essex, and my mate was Little Orville, who we named Bill, and I just batted with him one day, and this fast bowler came in and bowled at me, and I didn't see it.
Mm.
I didn't see it, and I can't blame Drink for that because I was a schoolboy, and I thought not for me. That could have knocked my head off. Took my eye out. So I just couldn't see it. I've never seen anyone. But so I watch cricket now, and how these, that's like people when they go to Wimbledon. They say, if you've ever been to Wimbledon, you just don't believe the way these tennis players pick up the balls. And I experienced that. I went to Wimbledon once, but cricket was a different ball game because you get a cricket ball in the face. That we were speaking the other day about. I was speaking to somebody. I was at the Oval one day when someone whacked the ball at Brian Close and hit him on the head from about 6 yards, and it went up in the air. Someone caught it, and he fucking ran over and grabbed hold of him.
Yeah.
And he just rubbed his head as if it was nothing, These, but obviously today that's why they wear the helmets. But no, Christie was very much when it come to especially charity things tonight. Nobody really took it that serious. It was all fun, But and that's basically what Chris was all about. It was, and take away the 90 minutes when he was he was the bloody good player. He was very underrated. He came to Chelsea at the wrong time, really. We were kind of him and Bill Garner was also a good player and a good lad, We were on a downfall, free fall. We was in free fall from. Probably after the Cup Winners' Cup, when we got beat 72, Chris was our best player. He was the best player in the 2 semi-finals, and we played brilliantly against Spurs. And he was our best player against Stoke City in the final. I in my book anyway. And he nearly got us a result there. Banksy brought him down when he was through about an inch outside the box, which would have changed the game. Chrissy always swore that it was inside the box, but it wasn't. I've watched it a million times. He's watched it a million times. We argue about it. But I wanted it to be inside the box. I wanted him to get up and take the penalty because he was super. He didn't get there. He's an unsung hero in anyone. And when I see that thing on from Bristol City the other day, I thought that's fantastic. They've acknowledged a great lad. As I said to you earlier on, all I remember was they had a prolific goal scoring partnership in Galley and Garland, and I just didn't know. I could have passed them in the street a million times. I wouldn't know them, but when I see Chrissy walk through the door, that was it for me. We just cracked it, as I do with so many people. Well, so few people, but that they seem like they're many because they're that big, and they're such a huge part of your life. And Don Shanks and I, we were going to go and visit him, but we couldn't because of the COVID. And and it was downhill ever since. It's a very sad feud. It's going to be it's a good job I'm the way I am, and I can get out and enjoy myself. But I had a drink for him the other day, and he's just a lovely, lovely, lovely man.
What was your first thoughts of Chris when he walked through the door there? Because as you alluded to, you'd heard of Chris Garland, and I think it was John Gailey, wasn't it? Double G for Bristol City that were banging all the goals in. So he's arrived at Stamford Bridge, and I mean, this fella, I mean, he was a good-looking boy, golden
Yeah,
locked hair, wasn't he? What
yeah.
was his fashion sense to mirror the way that he actually looked, Chris? So when he walked through there, I'm guessing he looked $1 million, and he was a great footballer as well.
He had Chris's strength, apart from his a ridiculous sense of humour from that part of the world, is he spoke funny. He didn't sound like anyone I've ever met really. And I got kind of distant relations down in Cornwall, places like that, but he just spoke differently, and he was. I think I was the first player he met because I was standing outside the offices the day he signed, and we just bumped into each other. And I heard that we made a new sign, and I looked at him and I thought it must be him. But I didn't know what to make of how he got the goals with Galley. So Galley must have been the big fella up front who he played off.
I believe so.
Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, but Chris had all the attributes. I truly believe that I always say, talking about Waddington, if he'd have come to Stoke with me, he'd have been an even better player. Because he would have been allowed to play the way he wanted to play, rather than the way the coach wanted him to play. And he wasn't a right winger; he was stuck out on the right most times. He'd done a lot of damage in the semi-finals, but Chris was a good centre forward. He had great attributes. He had great pace. He was good in the air. He was strong. But brave as a lion. And brave, he's been very brave through this illness. He had the illness the day I met him, so he was only 23 then, 24
Hmm.
then, and he had MS from then because he used to, it was like someone who'd been had it at a late night the night before, and you see him got the shakes. And Chris was a little bit like that, and I knew he hadn't been out, and it's just the end of his fingers would start shaking, and then he would disappear for 20 minutes, going to the bathroom or something, and I don't know if it was for medication or whatever, or to be ill or whatever, but he never mentioned it, he never complained about it, and he was a warrior. He was and as I say, he wasn't really badly. He was great in the coaching schools with the kids and everything else. Uh, and then when we were away on vacation and that, he was fine. And that disease just hits you, I suppose, at a certain stage where you're bedbound, and it's been horrendous, really. I mean, the only I'm not saying it's any consolation, but I suppose, as his son said to me, Alan, he says, I know how much you love him, but please don't come up and see him.
Hmm.
So, that me and Dom were going to go up, me and Shanksy were all set to go up and see him, and they put the brakes on, and they said, well, there's COVID, don't come up because of the COVID. So we couldn't go up then, and by the same time it was free to go and see him, he deteriorated terribly.
Yeah, it's awful, isn't it? It's a terrible, terrible
Yeah.
thing. But he still loved blue is the colour, and he still used to sing blue is the colour, didn't he, Chrissy?
Well, that was Andrew. Andrew said, "Well, there's a break." He said, "There's a minor breakthrough," and I'm thinking to myself, "My God, I don't think you can recover from this illness." And he says, "We've had a minor breakthrough." I said, "What's a minor breakthrough?" He said, "Well, I walked in this morning, and he's sitting in his bed singing 'Blue Is the Colour.'" And I couldn't believe it. I said, "No, what brought that on?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "It's just come through." He said he was sitting up happy and singing "Blue Is the Colour." I don't know, so I don't know where that come from. It's probably like when I was in the coma and on morphine and all that, and I
Yeah.
see my dad in the corner, and it was a coat hanging in the corner on a peg.
Mm.
And I turned around to my uncle. I said, "This wine's beautiful." and it was water out of a jug. That morphine makes you do funny things.
Yes,
So I can only think that fluid of colours come from somewhere unknown. But
absolutely.
he was so funny. He's one of the funniest people I've ever been. He's infectious. You want to be in his company, and he'll go out with anyone. He don't care really. But when me and him went out, it was a bit special. It was very special to be. I used to look at him as he was the big star, not myself.
Yeah.
In Chelsea. I used to think he was.
Mm.
'Cause that's how much I cared for him, and I always made sure that people don't have a little pop like that fell on the Facebook the other day. Just mention him he was a good player for Chelsea. Well, he was more than that. He was a fantastic player for Chelsea, and they should have been for 100 grand. He was magnificent, and he's just more than a footballer. He's just a fantastic fellow. These people don't understand. They don't understand. They think, are we robots or something? Do we got no feelings to go on Facebook and say, oh, so and so's dead? Oh, but he was a good player. Well, I don't want that on my headstone. Surely, that's not what it's all
Absolutely.
about.
And he had a love of music as well, not just recording Blue is the Colour, but
Uh,
he was a big fan of Curtis Stoigers, wasn't he, Al?
Curtis Stoigers. He loved Curtis Stoigers. Uh, And I think that was what him and his roof used to have a few glasses of wine and dance to and whatever else they got up to. Yeah, he loved Curtis Tigers. And because I think, even if I don't know where he came from, Curtis Tigers, I thought he must
American,
have
I
been
know.
mixed. Well, I know he's American, but he's also, as soon as his music comes on, I think of Chrissy and think he sounds like Chrissy. Because he did, he loved it. I mean, I've heard of Curtis Tigers till I met Chrissy, and he comes, he said, Curtis, have you got any Curtis Stoigers? He said to me in the car one day. I said, who the hell's he? It's Curtis Stoigers. I said, I've got John Lennon and Paul McCartney, Frank Sinatra, not Curtis bloody Stoigers.
Oh, dear. And
Uh,
did Chrissy drive? Was he a driver as well? Did he play golf? Did he play other sports? What else did Chris do? And you thought, blimey, what a superstar he was.
well, he do it. Yeah, he played everything. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know if he went out playing. He must have played with golf with them and gone out and done only because there was a 19th hole. But wherever there was a social, Chris would be there.
Yes.
He was one of them, and he really did. uh, when you hear this term "living life to the full," that was Chrissy.
Mm.
And he did it. To think that he did it with his terrible illness, it's even more the credit to him. And like I've always called my big cousin Anthony Mason my hero, the way he went through life and never complained. Because he was exactly the same. And when I hear people complaining in the pub, I just have to move away and can't stand it. I don't want to hear it, because there's always someone who's, really, really ill, and this, and he just never moaned about it, never said, "Oh, well, yeah." I said to him one day, I tried to get him, the Chris Garland charity, and I think we mentioned about Gary Lineker. He asked Gary Lineker could he help one day. Was it a function? Because he had one for his son, who was very ill and died, I think, which was awful.
You're just
And
breaking up a bit, Al.
uh, he came, Chris went, he come back to the table at a function and he said, I've got the ump with that Gary Lineker. He said, I think I can't give him a right hander. I said, don't do that, Chris. Because he asked him if he could help him and he said, go and speak to my agent.
Yeah.
And that turned me off Gary Lineker forever. And I see him in at Terry Neal's bar in Holborn one day, and he come over to say hello, and I just turned my back on him. I thought, if you can't help my mate, go away. And that was, well, you just could not say, let's help you, Chris. And
Yeah.
I tried to do it, and I fell out with the people that put these charities together, and I found out that all they do is they're in it for themselves, not the individual. I know a lot of people do so much good in charities, but as I found out in hospital, the young doctors and nurses who looked after me were just fantastic, but they're a different breed.
Absolutely, and Chris was a different breed because you have mentioned his charity work. The most charitable thing that Chris did was when he went back to Bristol City in the 70s. He's one of the Ashton Gate 8 that ripped up the contracts and saved the football club. So, not just for his football, not just for his personality, but for his charitable work and what he'd done for Bristol City. There wouldn't be a Bristol City today if it wasn't for Chris Garland and his 7 other teammates that ripped up their contracts. That's
Yeah.
one hell of a thing to do for a football club.
Yeah, yeah. I remember going out down in Bristol one night with him and Joe Royle. He's very good friends with Joe Royle as well. Uh, and that's what them people are like. Chris is like that. Big Joe's like that. Good people. I remember Joe Royle in the early days when we go out with him and Alan Ball, and they're just good people to be around. And you read the other side about footballers, and basically football is no different for anybody, any other walk of life. But when they're special, they're very special. And out of everybody's I've met at Stamford Bridge, and there was none better than Chrissy. He was just out there. And he was one of those you couldn't wait to see. Coming to live with me in Stoke, really, for a few months. I was staying in a kind of a hotel there, and he come and stayed with me for a long time. And that was when we went to America, and he could have stayed with me forever. It
Yeah,
was one of those relationships. You just can't get enough of nice people, and
yeah.
that's enough.
They're rather unique. They don't come around all that often. People that are genuine, are decent people to have around you. Sadly, Chris has passed away, but his memories, Al, will always be there, and his legacy will always be there. And these players are people more than anything, people with families, and they are too good to be forgotten. Too good to
Yeah.
be forgotten, mate.
Oh, absolutely, mate. I mean, whenever I'm out, Chris is a name pop up. I always think he's with me. I think of Chris. I'd be a liar if people lie when they say I speak about him every day or whatever.
Yeah.
But they're always a part of you,
Mm.
and his name would pop up, and I wouldn't really mention anything. I'd just think about the times we shared together, and for me, uh, I can only say because of who he was Chelsea's greatest signing. I mean, Lampard proved to be their best signing for business wise and
Mm.
how many goals he scored. But for me, Chris Garland, if I'd have thought my football life would have been without Chrissy in it, it would have been much lesser. Because I do love people that make me laugh as well. I mean, we always end up having a laugh on the show when we
Mm.
do it. But there's moments like this when you got to tell people listening that yeah, what a fantastic bloke he was because we don't know. I know a few actors and people like that, and you get to know them. And the thing about never meet your hero. I had Rodney Marshall. I was out yesterday and I see the fella that loves Rodney Marshall, and I said, keep away from me. I don't never meet your hero, and I did. Rodney was my hero as a kid. I played for Fulham, and I met him, and that went out the window. So never meet your hero, but Chrissy Garland became my hero, uh,
Absolutely.
and that's what it's all about, Paul.
Absolutely. And you've got that lovely photograph of you, and you used to call him Judy, didn't you? Sitting in the dressing room
Well,
when you.
Judy, yeah, Judy. He had a few names that you couldn't mention on the radio or on TV, but he was. He used to give us. He used to say that ain't right, is it? That ain't right. And I got to say to him, "What do you mean that ain't right? Is it?" I said, "You don't speak like that." He said, "Well, where do you come from then?" I said, "Well, I'm a Chelsea boy." But you don't say that ain't right. And he had these little quips, and he would say things and make you laugh. And I like people that don't grow up.
Yeah.
It's great. And he was a kid right to the end, and he was a very bright fella as well, very very astute, very clever. Uh, and as I say, when Don Shanks, Frank Worthington, and myself, we've done the coaching school, he was fantastic to be around. Keith Burchin, of course, come down, and he was in the course with us, and it was like the Musketeers.
Yeah.
It was great stuff. 5 people from 5 different parts of the world, getting together and putting on that, and not for money. We got enough. We didn't even earn any money out of it. We broke level, but it was fantastic, and it was. I was speaking to my friend the other day about Chris. I said, just a shame we couldn't have kept it going. Because
Some
that's what happened with when we could have kept it going today in this climate, but we couldn't then.
Absolutely, some wonderful accounts there, Al, of your friend Chris Garland. Sadly missed, but we won't forget him. Al, can I
We
thank
needed.
can I thank you so much for your time, mate?
No,
And
brilliant.
we
Thank
will
you.
reconvene for our usual My Life, My Music next month, mate.
Yes, we will, and I hope wherever he is, he'll be happy wherever he is, making someone laugh, and even I like to believe that there is something after this, but
Yeah,
wherever it is, he'll be in a good place,
I'm
a
sure.
better place, a better place than what he's been in the last couple of years.
I'm
Bless
sure.
his heart.
Yeah, I'm sure he will be, and I'm sure that when you meet again, he'll be up that bar saying, "Alan, I got a pint of cider for you, and let's listen to Curtis Stigers."
I said, ain't right.
Fantastic, Al. Cheers, pal.
All right, pal. Thanks, Paul.
Speak soon. Ta-ra, mate.
Bye,
Bye now.
bye,
Bye bye.
bye,
Bye
bye.
bye.